you're still watching Prime Morning, it's time for us to talk about health. Now, some time ago, we heard that, there's been a lot of health issues. Now, to help us with this discussion, let me introduce my guest first, and then I tell you what the topic is. My guest is Dr. Hilda Mantibia-Boy. She is a pediatrician with Pediatric Society of Ghana. Good morning, Hilda.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm fine.
You're looking beautiful.
Thank you.
When I posted you, I got a lot of comments coming in. Everybody was, and you're very passionate about what you do. And so you are the best person to help us with this discussion. Now, today we are talking about health implications of Galamsey on children. Now, some time ago, we know there was a research that was done where we got to know that children born in these Galamsey-prone areas, due to the heavy minerals that were used in Galamsey, were actually being affected health-wise. There are so many diseases that were told. The children were born with, cognitive impairment, so many things that were happening to these children. Today, Doc will definitely help us to understand what these diseases are, how we can help prevent it, and if there's any way the government can also come in there to support such a cause. We'll definitely call on the government to do that. And so, Doc, good morning once again.
Good morning.
Now, again, when somebody talks about this cognitive diseases and all of that, people wonder what it really is, or what are some of the diseases that children who live in these Galamsey-prone areas are actually prone to.
All right. So, just to put it a bit into context, the issue of the Galamsey is now more of a national issue. And even though there are some people who are in the communities itself, we know that the effects spread almost across the country because it affects water bodies, and these water bodies go a very long way, almost through the country. So everybody is at risk. Even you and I are at risk because we are eating food produced in some of these areas. Foodstuffs are traveling across the country, so we are all at risk. But when it comes to the health of the children, I would like to break it down into so let's say the physical health, and then some of the other social problems that the children especially are likely to experience. The chemicals that are used in the Galamsey, we know there's mercury, there's lead, and there are other things. And these have a lot of harmful effects. Some of it goes into the water, polluting the water. Some of it goes into the foodstuff. Some of it will go into the fish in the water bodies. And all these, once they are contaminated, some also in the air, once they are contaminated, we come into contact with it, and then we start to suffer some of the consequences. Pregnant women are not left out. And with these pregnant women, we know that increasing levels of some of these substances or chemicals can cause them to have fetuses that are affected. So you may have some of the babies who are born having the congenital malformation. So if we say congenital malformation, it means that there's an abnormality. So let's say you have a child who has a heart condition or a heart problem, the hole in heart, all those ones, they are all congenital abnormalities. There are some who are born, maybe the arm is a little short, the head is a little small. All those are part of the congenital abnormalities that we are talking about. And these show the fetuses of pregnant women who live, especially within these communities, or who have access or are exposed to some of these chemicals, are at higher risk of having babies with some of these problems. It also affects the neurodevelopment of the children. When I say neurodevelopment, we are talking about the growth of children, the mental development of the children. So there's a certain time when you expect children to be sitting, to be talking. That's all part of the neurodevelopment.
Right.
So these may be affected. You may have delays. You may have some of these children experiencing speech delay and other delays.
Low IQ?
Low IQ, so that's intellectual impairment. So it affects the cognition or the brain's ability to function, to think, to plan, to do the functions of the brain is affected. So whereas you would have had a child, let's say, who very brilliant, who can study hard, become anything they want to be, you may end up having a child because of the effect of the chemicals on the brain.
Let's break it down. Let's break it down for viewers who are watching to understand, because this is a little heavy if you don't understand, a lot in the medical terms. But before we break it down, I know PSG is very, very, concerned about this,
Yes.
very passionate about this. Why are you so passionate about it?
Well, so we have noticed Galamsey has been on the news for many years. The issues around air pollution, not so much, but sometime earlier this year, that also came up in the news. But that was even after we had our annual General Scientific Conference, where we adopted the theme environmental health and children's well-being, a shared responsibility. So we understand that some of these effects may not be immediate, but we know that it will have far-reaching consequences if they are not addressed from now. And that's why we are taking it up and we're doing more on it. We are also embarking on an Earth project. We think that, well, we expected the adults to do much more than they are doing now, and it's not really happening, unfortunately. We expect government to do a bit more. We are not seeing so much commitment to the cause. And we're saying that the future is for the next generation. It's for the children. So let's empower them and let's have them lead the charge to save the environment, basically. So we're saying in Accra, Washington, like, it's our land.
It's our land.
Yes, and we have to protect it. And we are hoping that the children will lead the charge while we encourage the adults, the government, and all the other relevant agencies to also sit up and do their bit to save the earth.
Now, we wish we had data to back, you know, this. But the thing is, when we go to the villages especially, hardly will they even tell you that this is as a result, my child is struggling or suffering with this as a result of, you know, the Galamsey.
Yes.
We breaking it down, the kind of diseases that they get. Let's talk about the kind of chemicals that are used in this Galamsey and what each chemical can, you know, how it affects the child. Let's talk about a chemical like lead.
Okay.
What are some of the side effects of taking a lead?
All right. So let me just add them because if we do
let's put it together.
Yes, it will become yes. So for both the mercury and the lead, which are used in the Galamsey, there will be other chemicals. But looking at these are all heavy metals, and the effects of these on the body is what we mentioned earlier. So you have the congenital malformations or increasing your chances or risk of having a baby who is born with birth defects or deformity.
Does it cause infertility? Can it cause infertility?
So, you know, in all of the argument, we have heard that if it was something that would cause infertility or cause erectile dysfunction or erectile problems, probably by now, many more people would have sat up and stopped it. But I cannot say specifically that it causes infertility or it causes erectile dysfunction.
Okay, but
I don't have enough evidence to say. It has a lot
of effects on the children.
It has a lot of effects on the children as well as adults, everybody.
Especially the unborn children.
Yes, especially the unborn babies or the babies who are in the womb, because the concentrations tend to be higher in them.
Let me ask you this. Of course, we want to know, is it when the pregnant woman consumes this water that gets affected, or even when the father consumes it, the kind of sperms that the father will produce will also become, you know, a little affected that could affect the baby in future?
I'd probably answer that by saying that both ways possible, but mostly it is as a result of your exposure to the chemical. So the more you are exposed to the chemical, the more of the chemical that you will have within your body, and the more toxic it will become to you.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter whether it's a man, mommy, daddy.
Yes, it does. And most often they'll be living around the same area anyway, exposed to the same chemicals or the same environment.
What about a woman who is not pregnant yet? You know, if you consume it, will your future child be affected as well?
If you have the chemicals in your body, then you are at risk. The longer your exposure to the chemicals, the more likely you are to have symptoms yourself or to have your fetus affected by the presence of the chemicals in your body.
So how long does the chemical take to get out of your system? Let's say I took it 6 months ago, or it's been in my system for the last 6 months, and I haven't taken that chemical in a while, and I get pregnant. How long will it take for it to get out of my system?
It's difficult to give specific figures or timelines to that, but it's all with the dose and the exposure. So it's expected that if you are withdrawn from the exposure over time, the levels will go down in your body, then your risk is likely to go lower. But for people living in these communities especially, they are constantly exposed to the chemicals. The fish may be contaminated,
right.
The food may be contaminated, even the water they are drinking may be contaminated. So then it becomes a prolonged exposure to chemicals, and they are getting it in different ways. And if they happen to be working in the mining areas or as part of the Galamsey workers themselves, then they could have even skin exposure, all that. So the more exposed you are, the more your risk is of having the harmful effects of these chemicals. We've talked about the babies, but even for adults, you could have learning difficulties as well, memory problems, some depression possible. So the effects are many, and it may or may not be very obvious at the beginning, okay, that this is what is probably predisposing you to this condition that you are having. And that's why we think that we need to do something about it now. The harmful effects of some of these chemicals that are used in the Galamsey, it's not new. They are known. And so let's reduce the exposure. The best thing would be to stop it altogether, so that the risk that the pollution that we are all seeing now, the water pollution, the air pollution, all land pollution as well, all comes to a halt, because you have land affected, you have the water affected, and the land is the same land that we are growing the farm produce on, the food that we are all eating. How much food do we grow in Accra? A lot of these foods are coming from
these
out
areas.
there. Yes. So if you have food that is contaminated, you and I may not know when we buy from these markets that this is coming from here or this is coming from here, and we'll eat it. The fish that we are buying, the fish from the fresh water, if we are getting this fish that is contaminated, then we are also all at risk of this Galamsey, which may seem very abstract, especially if you probably live in your home somewhere in Accra here. You think, oh,
I'm buying the best of fish,
yes.
Or I'm eating the best of food products, I'm eating raw products. But when you cook it, won't it kill these minerals if it's well cooked?
So these are not germs. You see, if it is a germ, then you say that, oh, maybe heat at this temperature or for this period of time is going to kill the germs. But this is a chemical that is going to sit in there. So it will sit in there fresh, it will sit in there cooked. It's not going to go anywhere. And once you consume it, you're going to have it inside your body, and then gradually you may begin to experience some of these effects.
Now let's talk about the children that, are born normal in these areas, and yet they get exposed to, the minerals. When they are born, they don't have any problem. So mommy, daddy thinks that they are fine. They didn't get affected by the minerals in the water. They are sitting, they are speaking well and everything. What are some of the things that can happen to them once they're exposed to the minerals?
The developmental problems, well, the growth or the development may go, as you have said, but the intelligence may be affected. And when we talk about so the illnesses, some of the things that we mentioned, can also happen, but the intelligence...
Are they prone to cancer as well?
Possibly, because all these chemicals can cause you to, or can increase your risk of some of these illnesses, including cancers.
So then we get to know that, these children, we have to prevent them from getting in contact with the minerals. But how do we do it? Because I have a child, and my child is probably like 7 months, 8 months, or probably a year. And yes, my child didn't go through all of that.
Yes.
Now, how do I prevent my child from being exposed to these minerals?
The best thing, like I said, will be to stop it altogether. Because when we stop it altogether, then the risk of the contamination or the pollution goes down. And then it won't matter much whether you are in Accra, you're in Kumasi, Takoradi, or wherever. Because as it stands now, once the pollution is ongoing, once the water bodies are being destroyed, the fish is being contaminated, the farmlands are being contaminated because the chemicals are in the soil, and the food is going to travel across the country. So we are all at risk. So the best way to protect our children is to stop it altogether. That would be the best. But if you happen to be in these communities, then another thing you could do is ensure that your child does not go to participate in this Galamsey activities, because there are also some children who are stopping school to go and join in the Galamsey work so that they can get some money. So discourage your children from participating or being on these Galamsey sites. Otherwise, then the skin contamination, the water, all that, they are then at a higher risk. Again, we know that teenage pregnancy is also a bit on the high side in some of these communities, because what happens, the boys, the men who are into this Galamsey have more cash to flaunt, to show, and to spread the girls. And as they do that, they lure the girls. Sexual activity, pregnancies happen when they are not ready for pregnancy. So that's also another sort of side effect of this Galamsey. Then you look at some of these children who are falling into pits, the Galamsey pits, and dying. Even during our conference, there was a presentation on it, and we could see that, you know, as the pits are left, sometimes you have growths on the pits. So it's a pit, all right. There's some water on it, and then you have some shrubs growing on it. You may look at it and think that, oh, this is land. And then you step on it and you realize that you are inside a pit and you die.
Oh, wow.
So there are some children who are falling into these pits and dying. And there are even adults too. I'm sure in the news from time to time.
The kind of diseases that the children get, you know, when we talk about the hole in heart, you know, it's curable, right? Or it's treatable?
It depends on the kind of congenital malformation or abnormality or birth defect that the child has. There are some of the congenital heart diseases that are easily corrected, or the hole in hearts that are easily corrected. There are others too that are difficult to correct. And it's not even all of them that we correct in Ghana. There are times when they'll have to go out of the country to go and have it done, the correction. And it's really expensive. So if it's something that you can do something about to avoid or prevent, then why not?
So it means the majority of these diseases are not curable, they are not treatable, because we know that the ones that has to do with deformity, with that, of course, is not treatable. But the ones with the low IQ, what about that? Is it treatable? When you take your child away from these minerals, can you help reset your child's IQ to a higher IQ?
It's difficult to say. You may be able to provide some support to help improve the child's learning. But the period, child development, a lot occurs before the child is 2 years, before the child is 5 years. So once you hit those ages and you have pressing issues, you have problems with learning, it's difficult to alter or modify things. You can provide support, you can help the child as much as you can, but it may be difficult for you to send the child back to pre-damage stages, or you may not be able to reset the brain to perform at the maximum that it would have performed if that damage or that exposure had not occurred. So it's really critical that we try to do something about these things, because otherwise, once the damage occurs, it's difficult to correct.
Now, is there any chemical out there? I'm just trying to see if we can find a solution. Let's just say government is fighting, but it's tough. Is there any probably, mineral out there that can be used to add on to their water or their food to lower the kind of minerals that are in there that are fighting their health?
I'm not aware of any such chemical.
Nothing?
Yes, I'm not aware of any such. And you see, with these chemicals, they are like, I don't want to say drugs, because they are not really drugs, they are chemicals.
They are chemicals.
And every chemical has its own side effects.
So even boiling the water will not work?
No, boiling the water will not take it out, because it is within the water and it's not a germ. So you can't do anything about it. I'm just trying to see if I can find a practical example. So let's say you have a bowl, you're eating your banku with a bowl of groundnut soup or palm nut soup with goat or something, and you have small coins inside. You understand? These are they are metals. If you boil it, will the coins go anywhere? They won't go anywhere. They'll remain within the soup. And you're going to swallow it once you're eating it and they are inside. So it's just like that. You can't say that you are cleaning it out. When the chemicals have, or the metals have mixed with the soil and your food stuff is contaminated with it, and they are tiny particles, but they are not something that will just get out by boiling or cooking clean. Oh, because I've washed the food, because I've done this, because I've done this. Because
this is more serious than we think, because I know that most people who live in these areas are thinking that, okay, if we go ahead and, we boil our food or we cook the food or we boil the water, it's safe to drink. But now we are getting to know that it's not safe. No. It's still not safe. No. What about the miners who live in these communities? There are people who are working in good mining companies, but they live in the communities and they have to buy food from these communities. What about them?
So it's a caution for all of us that we are literally sitting on a time bomb, all of us. As we sit and we watch the water being destroyed, we sit and we watch the land being destroyed, because you have now cocoa farms being turned into Galamsey pits. You have big farmlands, plantain farms. So at certain points, we may even be worried about food shortages and all. But the contamination is really real. And there's not much you and I can do. Even the water, there have been stories about the water companies struggling to purify the water from these areas, because the water is just so contaminated. And if they are struggling to purify the water, do you think the mother at home or the father at home will be able to purify the water for use? No, it's just going to make things very expensive. And if we don't watch things the way things are going now, we may get to a point where we have to import drinking water. Are we ready for that?
What about the skin? Using it to bath, because you live in these areas and you ought to bath. Are there some skin diseases that you're prone to as well?
So generally, I think the skin, the contamination will be there.
Especially for the children?
Yes, so the contamination will be there, and it will get into the blood through the skin as well and cause you to have those skin diseases. Not particularly, I wouldn't say maybe fungal or something, but it's mainly the exposure and the contamination that will go into the blood as a result of you being exposed to it.
Things are really happening. We ought to take very good care of ourselves. As we're talking about this, let's take a look at this video, and then when we come back, we'll talk more to Hilda, who is our doctor for today.
Just circulating in the past days. A growing health risk due to illegal mining, popularly called Galamsey. In the past years, Ghana has been grappling with the problem of keeping her illegal miners under control. With so much money available to make, people have resorted to very damaging ways of mining. A look on Google Map would see the extent of this damage, paying less attention to our environment and our health. Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning to pay the price for this recklessness. Our water that used to be clear are now too turbid, milky and dirty. You might think you live high up and this doesn't concern you, but hey, this is a threat even to the unborn generation. Aside the fact that illegal mining is already polluting our water, destroying our forests, and making it extremely expensive for water companies to process drinkable water, we are losing our waters meant for agriculture and may risk the dangers of chemicals in our foods as this continues. The health risk is even far more reaching. One of our finest surgeons in the country, Dr. Hadi Abdul of Kolibu, expressed serious concerns about the human resource of Ghana. The fish or the seafoods that you eat may end up having mercury, arsenic and cyanide in them. He said, these rivers are close to us than we think. They all empty into the Gulf of Guinea. The picture shows this already happening. With a lot of fishes coming from the sea, we might already be consuming these dangerous chemicals that are used by people who engage in Galamsey. According to my own lecturer, Dr. Sampene of KNUST Medical School, a forensic pathologist, he warned that children are already being born with deformities, and in many works they have found out that many individuals already have damaged gastrointestinal walls. These chemicals can destroy our brains, and in pregnant women can cause all forms of birth defects and worst case, loss of pregnancies. children can be born with difficult mental abilities. What more do we want to see as Ghanaians before we rise up against the menace which is stealing our future right in front of us? Dr. Elliot Tano, a nephrologist at the Komfanachi Teaching Hospital, revealed that the use of chemicals in extracting gold has a direct effect on our kidney, heart and our brain. He said the numbers of kidney diseases have risen up by a whopping 4-fold of cases in the past 10 years. We are sitting on a time bomb and we must act now. What would it profit Ghana for a few people to become rich through illegal mining and jeopardize our future? We are appealing to government to use all resources at their disposal to help end this menace. Most importantly, we as citizens must act. Stand up ruthlessly against Galamsey. We are already paying the price. Climate change, diseases, and terrible floods. Create awareness by sharing this video so people know how bad for Ghana and the unborn generation. If you like our videos, subscribing to our channel will be happy.
This and many more, of course, that's what we are discussing. But getting to know that, you know, children born in these areas, these are some of the diseases that they are prone to. And Doc Hilda is here. She's telling us a lot about it. Now, hearing it from you even is an eye-opener more, because some of these children, they call them, what, cursed children. Is it that they don't know what it really is?
When you talk about children with birth defects, people call them all sorts of names. I mean, it is part of life. There are some babies who will be born with deformities where it's difficult to track or sort of find where it came from. So in medical terms, we'll say it's idiopathic. And traditionally, people will say, oh, wait, or in Suba, like water child, this, that. So there are babies or children who may be born with birth defects, and there are some minor defects and some major. So there are little things that may be wrong with a baby, which may not cause any serious problems to the survival of the child or to the growth and development of the child. And there are some other major ones which will then affect the child's chances of survival. And you may then need to consider surgical interventions, other extensive forms of treatment or therapy before they can live. But no child is a cursed child. Everybody, once the child is born, the child is a human and deserves the very best chance at survival. And if it is as a result of some of these things that can be prevented, then we know we are the ones to blame. But if it's nothing that we sort of caused or we know caused it, then there's nothing we can do but to support the child as much as possible. But where we can prevent, let us try to prevent it.
And this is very preventable. You can join our conversation. You can send your message to us if you have any experience whatsoever with regards to what we are discussing, or you have a contribution to us. Let's hear from you, because we want it to be as conversational as possible. So it's not just about us discussing it, but if you have any questions, Doc is here. Ask the questions. If you have experience, send it to us. If you have any opinion about it as well, do send it to us, and we will definitely read it here on air, because we want Doc to be able to tell us more about what is happening in these areas. Now, Doc, you have told us a lot. Now, what about mommy's health when pregnant and consuming this? We've spoken about, you know, the child, you being born with all these deformities. What about mommy? Is her life at risk?
The conditions will be similar, as we mentioned earlier, but he's also added on the kidney problems, which I did not mention. But that is also very real, because you are consuming chemicals, could have an effect on your kidney, could have an effect on your liver and the other organs in your body. So it is best to not be exposed, or
so it can cause organ failure.
It can cause organ failure. Depends also on the amount of the exposure or the dose of the exposure and the duration as well.
Too many things that happens without our knowledge, and that's why they say lack of knowledge we perish, because you are living in these areas, and I know people who live in these areas, areas like Obuase, you know, Itiwa, and all those areas, and you are safe, but you are not safe. And even for those of us in Accra, it's even scarier, because the food is coming from these areas. We think it's okay. We go purchase it. We keep consuming it. But what quantity do you consume that becomes a risk?
I don't
Is there
have
quantity?
no. I don't have particular figures about the quantities that will cause toxicity yet. I think I'll just pull it out and share with Jenny so that we
Right,
can.
because I might be buying, mangoes by the roadside, not knowing it's contaminated, and I'm wondering, okay, so if I buy it from the roadside and I wash it with salt, is it okay? Then I get to know it's not.
It's not okay. It's not okay because if it's inside the food, it's not about cleaning the peel or the water. Sorry, it's not about cleaning the surface. It's about what is inside, and that is what we are all consuming. So we all need to sit up because this is more close to us than we think. Every day we go to the market. Well, today is Tuesday market around Mamprobi. There'll be lots of food stuff coming from different areas. I know some of these market women bring them from very far away, and they come to us, and we are buying them. We buy food from restaurants, from chop bars. We buy food from everywhere. And do you know what you're eating? You can never be too sure of what you're eating.
Can it cause blindness?
Blindness. I did not see anything on it causing blindness. Yes.
Now, this is very concerning, again, because I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying. I'm even scared. Because I said, I'm living in Accra, but it's closer to me than I could ever imagine. As, a society, PSG, have you had any conversation with the government to help, prevent these things from happening? Any conversation so far?
During the AGSM that we held in February in Kumasi, we had some representatives from the government coming, and so they were part of the discussion. We are hoping to have more meetings with them, and even with this project that we are doing, we are hoping that they will come on board to support us. But that is just a very small bit. With the issue of Galamsey and the pollution and all, we have the government agencies whose sole responsibility it is to protect us, literally. And if we want Galamsey to stop, we know exactly what to do to stop it. At the government level, they know what to do to stop it. At the level of the institutions, they know what to do to stop it. I just hope that this will be a wake-up call for them. It's only that sometimes when it involves something that is so much money, people have so many interests in it that you can't really be too sure of, then you can't really see the thing well. But I strongly believe that if government wants to stop this, they know what to do and they'll be able to stop it. So they should just sit up and do their work.
They're doing a lot, they say.
Well, so I believe that leadership is cause and everything else is effect. Because we have sat in this country, we have watched Galamsey start small.
And now it's here.
Now it's big, it's huge, it's taking up communities. The water bodies are being destroyed more and more over the days. It's almost as if like it's getting worse and worse. You fly over those areas, you see the water brown. What is this? What is this? Because we are just sitting, it's almost as if we don't care about the future of the country. We don't care about our children. We are leaving a lot of debts behind, unfortunately. And it's some of these resources that the children will come and depend on to better their lot, more or less. So so you've come to this earth. When you came, your ancestors had left this for you. Now this is the land that we have, and this is what we are eating from or working to eat on. Now, if we are not adding much to it, let's leave it alone. Let's not dig deeper and destroy whatever is left for those who are coming. It's almost like you're standing on land and you are digging the ground underneath you. Eventually, you just fall in. So we should all sit up. We are looking at the thing as if
Talking about us
we should all sit
sitting up.
Yes.
You are telling us, it's not just me. Everybody at home is getting to know that. Now we can't wash with salt and know that everything is fine.
No.
You can't boil water and know that the water is clean or it's clear or it's mineral free.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No.
But what can we do as citizens, as individuals, as people who live in these communities to prevent these things from happening? Let's say, yes, the government is doing their part, but what can we do as well?
I think we can just support what the government is doing and ask the government to do more. We can ask our leaders at the various communities to do more. We have leadership at different levels. So you have the government being like the overall, the president being the overall, but at various levels there's leadership. And when leadership fails, we see some of these things. But we should prompt our leaders we should support our leaders so that we can get it right, because yes, it's spoilt to a certain extent, but there's more to be spoilt. If we don't sit up now, we may be able to salvage and gradually see some recovery of whatever has been destroyed, but we need to do our best to support. And it's not enough to say that the leader is not doing it. We probably have to push a bit more and push the leaders. As citizens, we have our votes and we vote for what we want. So when it's time for us to vote, we let whoever is coming for our vote know that this is what we are looking for with our votes. Not a bucket, not a bowl. This is what we are looking for change. We're looking for things to get better. Our water should be clean. Our land should be clean. We should see our trees coming back alive. We should see food that is clean and healthy and not contaminated, and that these matter to us. Once we tell it to them, we let them know. We show with our thumbs. We show with our actions, with our word of mouth. A lot of these, it's a big social problem. A lot of these young men, but it is doable. That is why we have a leadership. You have a lot of young men who are looking for jobs. Sometimes they're just surviving off the Galamsey, even though they know it is harmful. Day in, day out, you hear that the pits are caving in on people. They are dying. Everybody that dies from Galamsey, it means that a woman has lost the breadwinner of the family. A child may have lost the father. If it's the woman, the reverse. You see, so everybody is being affected by the Galamsey. So we need to provide so it's not just the issue of the Galamsey, but it's a part of the bigger social problem that we have, and we need to try and find ways to support the youth so that they can develop, so that they can have jobs to do. Yes, we are building schools, we are getting them into school, but when they are done with the school, what next? Because they need to work, they need to get money, and we have so many energetic young men and women who are ready to work. So the system has to find a way of getting them to work, channeling their energies to get us to where we want to go, not just like leaving it. Galamsey is just one part of the problem, the earth destruction, the water destruction and all that, but it's a system failure. So government needs to look at it. All the bodies that the relevant agencies need to sit up and look at it. 50 years from here, where will we be as Ghana?
I mean, 50 years from here, now is even a problem. 50 years?
Yes, but that's leadership.
That's it.
That's leadership. If you're a leader, you need to think beyond your tenure. You need to think 10 years, 50, and that is how the advanced countries think. And that is how they're able to do what they do. And we admire so much and we see so much and we are so happy about. You need to think beyond your tenure. You need to start thinking about your children, your great-grandchildren. That is how they think in their negotiations. That is how they think. Those are the things that inform some of the decisions and the choices that they make. Anytime you negotiate with people who have exposure, who have the interest of the next generation at hand, you see it. And at that point, it's not about, oh, give me 1,000, then I'll do this for you. No, because they are not going to sell the future for the present bread or perfume or whatever it is or the girl they're going to get to sleep with. No, they're not. They are going to think about the future 50 years from now, 100 years from now. With the exposure that I have had working with some of these, the US, or some of the other, that is how they think. And you see, there's a formula to it. There's a science to it.
When you go to the communities and you have a conversation with these young men, these potential mothers, and you tell them that this is what you're prone to, you are actually opening yourself to some health risk. Your children that will be born could have, some form of deformities. How do they react to it?
So,
they don't care?
It's survival. It's survival. Knowing that it's harmful alone may not be enough. It may not be enough because people want to survive, they need to survive. So we have to also consider alternatives. It looks like we're talking about Galamsey, but now we're talking about the broader social issues.
Because we ought to, we get to know that the children can be deformed. We get to know that, it could affect them psychologically. Their IQ can be low. We get to know all of that. And then we also get to know that it might not even be curable.
Yes.
So from there, what can we now do to salvage the situation? Because now we've moved from here. We ought to find out how you and I can hold hands and solve this problem, because it's trickling down. And that's the scary part.
Yes. So we've spoken a lot. There's so much that we can all do. But knowing or the knowledge is important. So we educate one another to understand that this is it. These are some of the problems that we may experience as a result of the Galamsey. Now, there are different levels. The responsibilities of government is there. The responsibility of the other agencies are there. The community, educating yourselves, avoiding. But there again, what I'm saying is that many of these people are involved in the Galamsey for survival.
That's the thing.
Yes, so to cure it or to prevent it, then we have to provide them alternatives. Aside telling them, aside putting the police there, aside all that, we have to provide them with alternatives. Once we provide them with alternatives, then they have options that they can easily pick from and hopefully make an informed choice. So you have, it's a system that has to be in place for it to stop. And once the system is in place, it makes it easier for it to stop.
So putting the fear in them and telling them that your child could be born deformed is not enough, is it?
It may not be enough. It may not be enough. Unfortunately, it may not be enough because it's like it's in the future. What I see now is I'm hungry. I'm just looking for food. I need to survive. I'm going out there. That's the only work I can get to do, literally, even though I have a degree, even though I have an SSS certificate. That's the only job available that I can do. It's illegal. It's dangerous. I might die. But I'm hungry. My mother is hungry. You understand? My siblings are hungry. What do I do? You see, so you have young children even who are and in some of these communities, the children are leaving school to just go and do the Galamsey because then they can get some money.
Yeah.
And once they have some money, they can solve some of their family problems. You see, so it's tough. It's tough, but we have to try and build a system that will stop this menace.
No, but the children, the younger ones are at higher risk as compared to the older ones, right?
Yes.
So for the younger ones, what age is a high risk?
So from the time, we talked about the fetus that is being in the womb, but aside that, it is the exposure, the duration of the exposure, then that matters. The longer you are exposed to the chemicals or the metals, the more the risk or the higher the consequences for you. Yeah.
But what about if you build your immune system? Let's say they are giving the children all the right things to build their immune system. Some of them give birth, they give them cod liver oil and you know what I mean? All of that to build the immune system. Won't it help in any way?
If you take a poison, okay, let's say there's a poison here and the poison is supposed to kill you. If you take the poison, whether you are fat, whether you are slim, whether your immunity is good, whether your immunity is bad, you're going to die. So it's like that. And in some of these areas, especially even, these children are already malnourished. So they are, because of the poverty, because of all the problems with the nutrition, so they are already likely to have reduced immunity. But I'm just saying to put into perspective that it is not the medications or the multivitamins that you are giving to the children that is going to stop them from experiencing the harmful effects of these chemicals once they are exposed to it, or if you don't withdraw the exposure. So the removal of the exposure is the most important thing.
Right, so somebody says, hi, good morning. My name is Nicholas, aka Amando from JJT in the Etiwa East constituency. For the few years I have stayed here, I came to realize that anytime I consume veggies, I suffer diarrhea. Can this be attributed to Galamsey?
Possible. The contamination could cause that too.
So imagine a child in that area. This is an adult. So then a child in that area consuming vegetables, and vegetables are supposed to help you. And that is killing you just because of the kind of minerals that are in there.
It will be good to do some tests. I'm not sure whether the Food and Drugs Authority is doing that already, but to look at samples from those communities and see what is in the food, the metals or whatever are in the food or the contaminants in the food, then we could see. But then we know that once the water is contaminated, it seeps into the soil, and then you can have the contamination in the food.
Aside it being the water, can it be airborne as well? Can you inhale and it can affect you?
Yes, you can. So it could go into the air as well, and the same effects. It goes into your blood, and you could have some of those effects that we've talked about.
Right. So you see a video on the screen with how the water looks, and imagine drinking such water. And you know, we have even spoken about it that some people take this water and boil it and think it's okay for you to take in. And it's not okay for you to take anything like this and think that, okay, I've boiled it and it's okay. Today we are learning a lot about the kind of minerals that are in our water bodies, especially in Galamsey areas, and the health implications on that, especially in children. Pediatric, the PSG, that is Pediatric Society of Ghana, are really concerned about this because children in these areas are being born with so many deformities. Pedro Medina Cruz says, watching the best show live and clear inside Indianapolis, Kumasi, Tanoso, Kesben Junction. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Pedro. We are super grateful. You can also send in your message if you're living in any of these areas. Tell us how it's affecting you. But for those who have not lived in these areas and they end up living in the area, their immune might not be that strong, right? So, you know, sometimes they'll tell you that when you're growing up and your body is used to something, it's okay. It gets adapted to it. But when you are from a different place and you come in, your body might not be able to survive it or stand it. Is this true?
So it may not be true because exposure is exposure. It may affect people differently. But then once you get exposed, the chemicals get into your body. After a while, you may begin to experience some of the bad effects of the chemicals. The water that you showed us not too long ago, with that water, what would you want to do with it? You can't wash with it. You can't wash clothes with it because of the color. You can't wash food with it. You can't cook with it. You can't drink this water. So what is the use of that water?
But you know, sometimes they put it down and say the water will settle underneath, and then they pour the clean part and use it to bath or use it to wash.
You see, that's where the chemical will stay in the water.
Stay in the water.
Yeah, even if the dirt settles at the bottom, the chemical is still in the water. So it doesn't become okay just because it has cleared, you know, in the bucket. Maybe the sediments have settled. It doesn't make it okay.
And that's where a lot of people think that they are okay to go, they are good to go, especially in these areas. Because they actually put it down. I know you've seen it.
Yeah.
They put it down overnight. They fetch the water, put it down overnight. The dust settles underneath. They have the clean water on top. They pour it. They use it to cook. They use it to do everything.
The clean in quotes, yes.
So they don't know that, you know, it's not clean like they think it is.
No. And that's why I'm saying that if the Ghana Water Company, which is the body that is supposed to purify water, is struggling to purify water from these communities, then you and I, sitting in our homes, who have not gone to Ghana Water School,
we are in trouble.
Except the Lord.
So the Earth Project, tell us a bit about the Earth Project, Doc.
All right, so as part of our theme for the year, Pediatric Society of Ghana, we are working on the Earth Project, which for Accra we are saying Washipon. And all we are saying is that we need to do something about the earth, and we need to do it now. Elders, adults seem to be failing us, and we hope that the children will provide us with some hope. So we are trying to empower them to take it up and lead the charge for keeping the environment safe and healthy. And with this, we're going to, so for the launch that we're doing in the Ministry of Health Basic School on Friday, what we're doing is there'll be an art competition on the earth pollution, water pollution, and the land pollution. And we'll inaugurate or commission some ambassadors for the year. So every class will have about 2 representatives who will be like advocates or chief advocates or ambassadors for the environment. And when they go home they'll be like the environment police. They'll make sure that no littering, all those things. They'll teach their parents, teach their family, everybody about the environment. We'll also have a tree planting exercise. And with this tree planting exercise, we want to do fruit trees. So if everybody plants a tree, there'll be more trees in the world. And the trees help to clean the environment.
The air as well.
Yes, so everybody plant more trees. And if it's a fruit too, they are more likely to plant it.
Talking about, you know, the tree, you know, clearing the air.
Yes.
Now let's take it to the Galamsey areas. We know they are cutting down the trees. They are felling the trees.
Yes.
However, if we plant more trees there, and we are talking about the inhalation that could be, harmful to your health. When we plant more trees, will we have clearer, air to breathe in these areas?
It will help. But you see, somebody has said this before. They said that the fact that we say it is fire resistant does not mean you should go and put it in fire.
All right.
You get what I'm saying? So it will help to an extent. But if there's a source or something that is causing the problem, rather than covering the problem, you uproot the problem or you treat what the problem is. So you stop the Galamsey, you plant more trees, and you save the environment, basically.
Right.
So the approach should be more of, let us find, as for the, every year, Ghana, we are planting trees here, we are planting trees there. That's not it. That's not the end. I mean, some of, on a day, people will go around planting trees, taking pictures for their cameras, while the rest of the days of the year, people are actively involved in Galamsey. You get what?
Yeah.
So the irony of that, we do a lot of things for the cameras, but the reality, the habits, the things that we do every day should be things that are going to help to save the environment. So let's stop the Galamsey. Once we stop the Galamsey, we stop the activity. It's not just Galamsey anyway, but it's one of the things that is rapidly destroying our earth now. We stop all those activities, then we find ways of bringing the environment back, improving the health of our environment, and then we'll be more healthy. When you live in communities where there are more trees, the air smells fresher. I mean,
that's true.
It feels better. The whole you are more happy. It even has an effect on your mental health and well-being. So if you're in a place, let's say you live in a community of flats where just buildings, no trees, no animals walking about, you're more likely to be depressed than somebody who lives in the village and is living amongst trees.
Anyway, so a message coming in. Good morning. I'm watching from Volta Aflao Etonam. That's my name. This show is really revealing the mysteries and disasters have been experienced, as well as awaiting the next generation. I think serious punishment like imprisonment should be given to culprit caught in destructive acts. Any Volta is safer, so you guys should start relocating here. Okay, so anyway, so Gakofe Volta River is the best water so far Ghana can depend on now. All right, we'll probably think about relocating there, darling. Brenda Enchidonko says, good morning, Joy Prime. This Galamsey menace is a killer, and maybe when authorities begin to experience the deadly effect, there will be a solution. Maybe. Akosia Asantua says, the Galamsey issue is very worrying. Thank you for helping us understand how dire the situation is. Our leaders need to wake up to solve this menace. God help us all. Akosia from Spintex. Okay, another message coming in. Kobe Brown says, I didn't know Galamsey has so much health implications. I thought the effect was just on the environment. Thank you, Prime Morning, for the insight. Other messages coming in. Let me quickly get it. Right, so there was another message that came in. I'll try and get it as well, and then we'll read it. But these are, worries, and I'm excited that PSG, that is Pediatric Society of Ghana, has come up to help fight this. So when is the event starting?
It's on Friday.
It's on Friday.
So this is just the launch. Subsequently, we hope to be able to do other schools where we'll work with the Ghana Education Service and the various schools to create more ambassadors out of the children. I mean, now they are really going to be our hope, and the future is for them. So we'll just empower them to take it up.
Thank you so much for putting this together. So if I am, an ordinary Ghanaian, I'm not part of PSG, but I want to be a part of it, how do I become a part of it? Because it's a great cause.
Yes, you can go to our website, Pediatric Society of Ghana, and request for a membership form or fill the membership form.
Okay, so I don't have to be a doctor?
No, you don't have to. So we have associate members and we have full members. The full members have to be pediatricians, specialist pediatricians, but we have associate members that are allied health professionals, the nurses, the physiotherapists and others. And then we have even teachers and others. So if you are interested, just link up with us and we'll see how best you can support, even if not in a position of a member.
What about if I own a school and I want you to be I want my school to be a part of this great course?
Just send us a message. We will get in touch with you and discuss how we can work together.
Oh, simple like that?
Yeah, simple like that. No long things. We actually...
Is there a number? Is there a number to call?
Okay, so 020.
Okay. Please, so it's a work number. Please mention the number.
020-2640-516.
Okay.
Yes.
020.
2640-516.
All right. Doc,
Yes.
thank you so much for being here. We are super grateful. And
pleasure.
of course, we are hoping that we'll be able to fight this Galamsey menace and have a very healthy environment to live in, because as I'm living in Accra, I'm very, very scared. And these children that are born with deformities, some of the deformities could be
You saw hydrocephalus, the
Yes.
heart diseases. There are many. There's from head to toe.
From head
Every
to toe
part
deformity.
can be deformed.
Right.
Yes.
And I saw some of the children are born with just one eye, and it's sometimes in the middle here. Very scary. Very, very scary. Thank you so much, Doc, for doing this for Mother Ghana. We are very grateful, and especially PSG. Our regards to them.
They'll hear it.
All right. So our doc has been Dr. Hilda Mantibia Boy. She is a pediatrician, and she is with Pediatric Society of Ghana. And of course, today we have had a discussion on the health implications on children who live in Galamsey-prone areas. We are hoping that government and us as well will put together some sort of force to be able to fight this Galamsey menace. And we hope that you at home can also spread the good news and tell government, let it reach government, that let's try as much as possible to stop Galamsey